Welcome to the latest episode of Making a Case for Your Lawyer Dreams. I'm so excited to have you guys here. I don't have my music in the background, but we're going to keep on rolling because guess what? When life start lifing, we keep going. I'm so excited to have you guys here, of course, on Making the Case for Your Lawyer Dreams. We have the honor, the privilege to be able to show you guys how to navigate your journey. In addition to that, we're always blessed to be able to have guests come on from all over the country to share their lawyer journeys. Because at the end of the day, the challenges that you're currently going through, there's lawyers, there's judges who look like you, who've overcome those challenges. And we like to bring those stories to you so you are able to get the reality that, you know what, I can do this. Is it hard? Absolutely. But I can overcome this. We've been blessed to have over 102 episodes with 102 different guests from all different walks of life to share their stories. And we're fortunate enough to be having another amazing guest that's going to be here to be able to do the same. I want you guys to be able to understand that you had that lawyer dream for a reason. It didn't happen by mistake. It didn't happen by accident. You had that dream for a reason, and it is our goal and it's our purpose to give you guys the tips, the skills, and the resources to make that dream come to life. We've been so fortunate to have so many amazing aspire lawyers take the next step in their journey and manifesting their lawyer dreams. And regardless of their LSAT scores, regardless of their GPA, regardless of their imperfect past, the truth of the matter, you guys, is that you can become a lawyer, period. I know oftentimes we see this image of what a lawyer is, and oftentimes we find ourselves defeated, discouraged, and believing because we do not fit this picture-perfect image of what a lawyer is, that we can't do it. But thus far in the past 3 years, I'm able to happily say cap on that. Why? Because we've had people become lawyers with low LSAT scores. We've had people become lawyers who've been dismissed from school. We've had people get into law school who had 2.0 GPAs. So it can be done. And we've been able to prove that thus far. So I want you guys to be encouraged because at the end of the day, there are 197 law schools. And last time I checked, fam, all you need is one yes. All you need is one yes. I want someone to type that in the chat because at the end of the day, all you need is one yes. Now, could that yes come from a place outside of your comfort zone? Absolutely. Will you possibly have to move and relocate to make that lawyer dream come true? Absolutely. But if you are willing to step out of your comfort zone, you guys, you can and you will become the lawyer of your dreams. I know at times we see LSAT scores and GPAs and we see posts on Reddit telling us that it is not possible. I know at times we may look at the current administration ran by 47 and think because there's a cap that's been placed on loans for you to be able to go to school, or because affirmative action is no longer in place, or because DEI is currently under attack. Those are all things put in place to discourage you to keep fighting for your lawyer dreams. And I want you guys to be encouraged because law schools know that there are people with so-called low LSAT scores, so-called low GPAs, students who've been dismissed, students who have criminal records, felonies, misdemeanors, suspended licenses, DUIs. There's so many people who look like you who are taking a step in their journey of becoming lawyers. And we want you guys to understand that you can do it as well. Of course, I'm holding it down to St. Louis, Missouri. It's not the place where I want to be. It is the place where God has me. But nevertheless, fill up my chat box. Let me know where it is that you're viewing our session from. Of course, I give my love out there to Illinois. And also, I give my love out there to all of you guys out there that is making the conscious effort to fight and not to give up on your lawyer dreams. All right? And so, as we get ready for our upcoming guests, I want to also share some testimonies. So this week we've had like 6 students get into law school. We had a dismissed student be able to get back into law school at Southern University Law Center. We had another dismissed student who was able to get into law school at Pacific Law School. We had a student who had a 2.0 GPA that was able to get into Nova Southeastern in Florida. And so that's just the beginning. And we had a lot of students this week. One student, of course, that we posted who was able to get into the conditional admissions program at St. Louis Law School. So I want you guys to be able to understand and look at your situation and say, what am I going to do next, right? Have I been ghosted by law schools? Have I gotten a whole lot of rejections? Have I got a whole lot of wait lists? If this is you in any of the three situations that I explained, then the option that you have is to either, one, sit and wait, which is a big mistake, or go back and see and evaluate your application to figure out what's missing. Understand this, fam. Law schools, your first case as a lawyer, you guys, you are representing who? Yep, you're representing yourself. You are your first client. And what better person to represent you other than you? You know your strengths. You know your weaknesses. You know the elephants in the room that you have to be able to effectively address. What I tell my students when they do not get into law school, I tell them that the reason why you didn't get into law school is it wasn't because you're LSAT. Why, Anthony? Because law schools accept people every year with low LSAT scores. It wasn't because you're GPA. Why, Anthony? Because law schools accept people with GPAs as low as 2.0s every year. We had a student a couple of years ago get into the University of Texas Law School with a 2.0. So what I tell people is the reason why we do not get into law school, it's not because of our GPAs, it's not because of our LSATs. It's because we have failed to effectively convince law schools that we can be successful. And how do we do that, you guys? We do that with the quality of our writing. We do that also with our ability to be able to apply to the right jurisdiction. To my lawyers out there, when we talk about jurisdictions, what I mean out there, pre-law students, is that means that I am not casting a wide enough net when it comes to applying to schools. I am not moving intentional enough to find law schools who are going to have a history of accepting me with my scores. And number three, oftentimes one of the biggest mistakes, you guys, we make is we fail to get effective letters of recommendations from people who are supposed to be experts about our abilities to be successful. We cannot dismiss that, you guys. Understand this. Law schools have a history of accepting students who are so-called low scores, low GPAs, and low LSAT scores. But it is your job, it is your responsibility, you guys, to be able to show them who you are. If you are not your 2.0 or 2.1 GPA, Courtney, then it is our responsibility in our writing, in our addendums, to be able to effectively communicate and show these law schools who we are. And that's something that BecomingJD, we've done a wonderful job of doing. Listen, I want you guys to think about the people who are closest to you. That means besties, boos, fam, cousin, kinfolk. You know, the folks that stand 10 toes down in regards to your abilities, your work ethic, your character, and your resilience. Your goal, you guys, in your writing is to be able to make people who have never, ever seen you before be able to stand 10 toes. Your job, Courtney, your job, Ms. Holtz, is to be able to convince law schools with the evidence that you provide, your letters of recommendation, with the evidence that you provide, with the quality of your writing, with the evidence that you provide, with you communicating with them during informational interviews, to be able to show them that you about that life. Your job is to show them that you can be successful. We've been able to do it. We have a student right now who had a 2.0 GPA, a 140 LSAT score, and she is now in her second year of law school at Washburn in Kansas. Shawty moved the whole tribe, yo. Moved the whole tribe from Miami, Florida, to go to law school in Kansas. So I share these stories with you to be able to understand that everybody has a winning argument. Think about it, Courtney. Think about it, Deanna. No matter what you do from this day forward, you cannot change your GPA. And if you are fortunate enough to be able to change your LSAT score, I am of the belief that unless I get a 170 or a 180, which would have never happened for me, no LSAT score is a representation of who I am, okay? So that means if I want to show the representation of who I am, The best thing ever is that law schools give you an opportunity to be able to advocate for yourself. And I want you guys to be able to understand that if in fact we're not getting acceptances, it's because we are not doing a good job enough to show law schools what they're looking for, to put their concerns and their fears to bed. We had a student with a 129 LSAT score. Shawty said, hey, Anthony, I want to go to George Washington Law School. I said, okay. But what we did is we did an effective job, you guys, of being able to show the law school who she was. She ended up going to George Washington, graduated a year early. So understand this. There's examples at every law school, even the dream law school that you want to go to, of people taking an opportunity and convincing law schools of their ability to be successful and proving them right. So because there is a history at practically every law school in the country, what law schools are looking for, the reason why you haven't heard back from schools, the reason why you've been waitlisted, is because law schools see something in you. And law schools are wanting an opportunity to see, how bad do you want it, Deanna? Maria, what are you willing to do to convince law schools that you are about that life, okay? And so just waiting is not an option. Let's be honest, you guys. In our lifetime, how many times has waiting really produced anything? What does it say in the Bible? Faith without works is dead. So in this situation, you guys, it becomes so important for us to put in our work. And that work is something that happens not just when we're applying, but most definitely happens after we are applying to school. Because we are in a position where we have to make the argument to law schools that we are passionate, that our work ethic is unrivaled, and that we are resilient, that we are not going to fold when things get hard. But the only way law school is going to be able to know that, you guys, is based off of the stories that we share and also the individuals that we choose to advocate for all of those qualities to which law schools are looking for, that in fact we can be successful. It can be done. I know at times we may find ourselves feeling discouraged. I know at times we may find ourselves feeling defeated. But I want you guys to be able to understand that that is a part of the growth process. When you're hitting that point where you're realizing that, man, this is not working, it's because it's a time for you to evolve. That's because it's a time for you to take the next step, pivot, and make changes. Understand this, for so many of you guys who are joining us tonight, we have never had to make changes to how we prepare, how we study. For most of us, we've been doing things pretty much the same since elementary school. And because of that, we've experienced nothing but success. However, when we get to this part of our lawyer journey where we're taking LSATs or we're trying to find schools to apply to, for so many of you guys out there, myself included, it is very challenging because we've never had to apply or do something different, and we're lost trying to figure out what works, and we're scrambling, also battling our ego, thinking, well, heck, I'm a good writer, heck, I made magna cum laude, summa cum laude, I was rocking all those chains on graduation day, I have this job, I've worked as a paralegal for so many years, and so because of that, we oftentimes find ourselves in a position where we are refusing to pivot and do things differently. And that ultimately ends up being the demise that leads to our delay in taking the next step in our journey. And I'm sitting here talking to you guys, not from a person who hasn't gone through this, but a person who's actually lived it himself. When I went into my lawyer journey, I was very entitled, very, very full of myself. Came from Morehouse, and I thought that the next step was law school. Didn't believe that since I graduated with a 3.7 that, hey, I had my study mechanisms ready and I was prepared for this next step in my journey. However, I got a reality check when I didn't get into school and I had to take the LSAT a whole lot of times. And it was only after, you guys, I had no more money left. And I had to figure out the way of how am I going to make this lawyer dream happen. When my mother told me, Anthony, I don't know how you're going to study for the LSAT, but I can't pay for any more prep courses. And it was at that moment when I had to realize that it wasn't about the length of time that I studied or the amount of practice problems that I did. It became important for me to be able to evaluate and assess what was the proper learning style for me. Because if I was to ask you guys out there right now, what is your learning style? In fact, type it in the chat, what is your learning style? I could all but assure you that a lot of you guys have never taken a learning style test to figure out the most effective way for you to study and prepare. But it was after I took Princeton Review, Kaplan, the Blueprint LSAT, and had no more money left that I was resulted to only relying on my own faculties. And it was at that particular time I began to learn more about myself to see what is the best way for me to learn. What is the best way for me to be able to process a lot of information in order to get to a point where I'm able to be effective and successful? And it was at that point when I realized, oh my goodness, I'm an auditory learner. Oh my goodness, I am a person who has to write things visually in order for me to be able to gain that proper grasp of the material. So with that new understanding in regards to how I learned and how I processed information, as opposed to the memorize and regurgitate way that so many of us out there, you guys, have almost committed to memory since elementary through college, that was not going to work for me on the LSAT. And that's why I was getting 137s, 131s, and 127s. But it was when I finally committed myself to learning about me and figuring out what is the best way that I learn is where things ultimately start changing for me. And after taking practice tests and applying my learning style, instead of listening to Wayne in the workout gym, I was listening to myself and the explanations from the LSAT problems that I got wrong. That's when things started to shift and change. Understand this. Oftentimes, our body is sending signals to us in regards to what is the best way for us to learn. If you're sitting in front of a book for 2 and 3 hours at a time and you find your mind going other places, that is a signal, you guys, that maybe I need to change up my preparation. Maybe I need to alter the way I study so that way I can get the desired result that I want. And so after doing this for 10 weeks and listening in the car, listening at the store, listening to explanations while driving, my LSAT score went from a 137 to a 157. And it was because I finally made a choice, you guys, of pivoting in regards to and learning and educating myself on what the best way it was for me to learn. That is how my results became different. Now, if you're struggling with the LSAT, and the LSAT is a struggle, it is. Be sure that you go to the link in our bio and join our free 2 LSAT support groups. One is called The LSAT Ain't Got Nothing on Me, and the second one is called the LSAT Accountability Group. Both of these groups, again, are free $99. The LSAT Accountability Group is run by students, and they meet 3 times a week to study and prepare for the LSAT. So I want you guys to be able to understand. I know at times on this journey, it definitely can feel like you're riding solo dolo. But understand, riding solo dolo is a choice. We have over 500 people in each one of those groups, and you know what? Go ahead and join. It's a safe space for you to be able to ask questions. It's a space also, you guys, where you can drop questions and get explanations and get feedback and get solutions as opposed to sitting there and struggling in silence, okay? We do not want that for any of you guys. And it's a helpful tool that has helped change so many aspiring students' LSAT scores to help them get into school. And I want that for you as well, okay? So, moving on. So, when it came to the LSAT, that was the struggle for me. And when it came to going to law school, I had to realize, again, changing and pivoting to learning what law schools want, and also helping in regards to preparing yourself for those finals. And so the thing is why it's so hard right now for you is because a lot of you guys haven't had to change anything. For most of you guys have barely been attentive in class, if not present at all. We've been able to multitask and develop very bad study habits like procrastination and really saw no effect of it. It didn't impact us academically, and so that was the process that we brought into LSAT. And also, if you're able to get through the law school without making changes, it oftentimes becomes the biggest challenge for when you get into law school. See, and I can talk again from personal experience. When I got into law school, I thought I was set, yo. Woo! We here, y'all. We here, right? No, sir. No, ma'am. When I got into law school, I never asked teachers or professors for help. I never went to the library. I never utilized resources because I thought that I had it. And oftentimes one of the biggest challenges that people have once they get into law school is learning the value of asking for help. Again, you are not on this journey alone. Let's say that again. You are not on this journey alone, you guys. I know at times when you stay on this journey alone, it only becomes a detriment to your success and your ability to perform at your best on this journey. Okay? Because I refused to ask for help, and also because I was on Bourbon Street. I got dismissed from law school with a 0.6 GPA, you guys. 0.6, not even a 1 point something. And it was at that moment the dean of the law school told me, Anthony, why don't you try something easier? Why don't you try to be a security guard? That's not hard. Why don't you try to be a counselor? And that was the first time in my life someone ever told me that I could not do something, that I was not good enough. And I had to make a choice in that particular point. What am I going to do now? Am I going to accept what someone else said about me? Or I'm going to make the conscious choice to be able to prove them wrong and also prove myself right. And so after I got dismissed from law school with a 0.6 GPA, I used to be embarrassed by that, but now I tell all of you guys that. I had to go back in the lab. I had to find out what I needed to do to be the best version of myself. I had to identify, and I actually had to humble myself and realize that this is something that I wanted, that I had to utilize the resources outside of my comfort zone in order to become better. And that required me to have to do a lot of inner working and find out what are some of the things that I was doing wrong. What were the things that I was falling short from? And this process, I had to end up, I wanted to go back to law school because I couldn't see myself doing anything else in my life. I had to make these changes. And then I had to find law schools who would give me an opportunity. So for you guys out there who may have been dismissed, or for you guys out there with imperfect past, I want you guys to also be able to understand, of course, a lot of attention gets paid to your personal statement, reasonably so, but also it's going to be so important, you guys, for you to focus and take some attention and focus also on your addendums. So if you have been dismissed, if your LSAT is below 3.0, if your LSAT score is below 140, then you're going to have to write an addendum to be able to show and assure law schools that I am not one of them ones. I am one of the exceptions. And so that's a process I had to go through, and I had to go find schools in the right jurisdiction who would give an opportunity to me in spite of the fact that I got dismissed. I remember I contacted all the law schools that I got accepted to. I contacted like all 10 law schools that I got accepted to before, and nobody responded. They said, no, we don't give students who've been dismissed a second chance. We believe that other people deserve those chances. And it was in that moment I had to realize I have to find the right jurisdiction. So if you're getting no's, you guys, regardless of what your situation is, that means you have to find the right jurisdiction. That means you have to find schools who have a demonstrated history of giving students with your background an opportunity to be successful. Because last time I checked, fam, money don't grow on trees, y'all. So if you're trying to find an acceptance, you have to find the right jurisdiction. So I literally remember, you guys, I was on the phone calling law schools, 197. I think I called about 60 law schools. And I was calling law schools saying, do you have a history of accepting students who've been dismissed? And for you guys out there, that would maybe not in my situation. You may call schools and say, do you have a history of accepting students with this fill-in-the-blank LSAT score, with this fill-in-the-blank GPA? For the schools that said yes, I added them to the list. To the schools that said no, I said fuck you and move on. Because at the end of the day, you guys, it becomes so important when you are applying to schools that you want to make sure that you're focusing your attention on schools who have a history of investing in students from your same situation and from your same background. Because if they do have that history, you know what that means? They also have that support that you're going to need when you get there, okay? Because we are not in the business, you guys, of what I call donating. We're not in the business of just swiping the card, paying $45 fees and paying app fees to schools who are not going to have a history of investing in us. And so after going through that process, yeah, there were days where I cried. Oh, I definitely cried. I finally got a list of about 10 solid schools who had a history of accepting students from my background. And the thing that was so amazing is out of those 10 schools, I got into 8 of those. So I want you guys to be able to understand the level of intentionality. Understand this, you guys. For so many of you guys out there, you have been punishing yourself for things that you can't change. You cannot change your imperfect past. Waiting 1 year after another is never going to change your GPA. But finding schools and finding opportunities presented by schools is what's going to be so important. Blindly applying to schools and hoping that they give you a chance. Unfortunately, you guys, it's only going to bring you nothing but disappointment, hurt, and pain. And so I want you to understand that I believe that everybody can become a lawyer. And thus far, we've been able to prove that. And I want you guys, I share my story with you guys. I oftentimes share so many other people's stories for you guys to be able to get that understanding that a lawyer is something that you can and you will do. But it just becomes important for you to be able to do the work. In this lawyer journey, if you have not realized yet, fam, ain't nobody on this planet going to gift you anything. If you want this lawyer journey, you're going to have to work for it. We have a dismissed law student who lived all the way in North Carolina. She got an opportunity, got accepted to a law school all the way on the other coast. There was no family there. There was no support there. But that's what the dream was. And she went there, and now she's going into her 3rd year. Had another student, you guys, in Hollywood, in LA. She got accepted to law school in South Dakota. What'd she do? Packed up all her stuff and moved to South Dakota. So I share these stories for you to be able to understand that you can be a lawyer. Are you willing to move with intention? Are you willing to step out of your comfort zone? Because that job that you're doing right now, you and I both know it's not bringing you fulfillment. Yeah, it's paying the bills, but you know that you're called for something greater. Just like I knew when I was working and trying to get back into school, I knew that I was called for something greater. And it was not in the current position that I was in. And for you guys out there, I want you to resist the urge of what I call being on the deferment train, where we defer till next year, defer to next year, defer to next year. Instead, fam, what we got to do is we got to lock in. We got to say, fam, listen. So I got 8 rejections. Let's go back in the lab. Let's go holler at these schools. One of my students, and I recommend for you guys to do this as well, he got rejected from a couple of schools. Yeah, he could cry foul, curse, and just wait blindly. But instead what he did is he reached out to those schools and asked them, what was I missing from my application? What are some things that I could do to make my application stronger? And got the information right from the horse's mouth. And was able to take that information, modify his application, enhance his letters of recommendation, add a couple of gems to his resume, and he shot at some other schools. And you know what? After getting the rejections, he got his first acceptance last week. And I share this with you to be able to understand that it is possible. The best thing that could ever happen to you is for you to get rejected while law schools are still accepting applications. Why? Because that means that if you get rejected while law schools are still accepting applications, that means I can go in the lab. That means you can send your essay, resume, and everything to info@BecomingJD.com. And then we could go under the hood, see what's missing, have a conversation about your LORs are, and then we can go ahead and make some modifications and shoot our shot. So understand this. The dream ain't over until you say it's over. Hold on, let's say that again. The lawyer dream is not over until you say it's over. Think about that. The only way this journey ends is when you decide. And understand this, there's people in your same similar circumstances, you guys, who made the choice that it's not going to end until they become a lawyer. Had a student, you guys, who was from Jamaica, came to New York, already had a college degree. She was going to try to go to law school. Gets to the States. They're not taking any of her credits, y'all. So she got a choice. Say deuces to that lawyer dream or make some alterations and see what happens. So what sis do? Sis got her a GED and went back to school. And you know what happened after she went back to school? Got a college degree. After she got her college degree, shawty did some radio, was doing some other things in New York, and was a non-traditional student in her 40s and applied to law school. So understand this, fam. I know oftentimes we cut on the television and we believe that because we see Law and Order, we see Scandal, we see How to Get Away with Murder, but we do not see the grind of those actors or those people who really had to fight for it. Understand the grind is something that's a part of the process. I know Judith could have made the decision to say, F this, man, but she didn't. She didn't. And now she's a second-year law student at Roger Williams Law School in Rhode Island. So understand this, fam. Those challenges that you're going through are meant to make you stronger, are meant to make you more resilient, are also meant for you to be able to get the reality of how freaking strong you are. I think oftentimes, you guys, because of this LSAT, the LSAT be having us tripping. The LSAT be giving us temporary memory loss as if we done forgot how far we done came to get here. Have we forgotten about all the challenges that we've overcome thus far on this journey? Don't let no test score be the reason why you quit. You do your best. And after you do your best, you start creating the process of building your case to get into law school. That means I got to get experience. Some say, well then Mark, legal experience is not required. Well fam, if it's not required, want to look good if you have it? I'll tell you this. If your LSAT score is a 165 and you have a GPA that's a 3.5, then you know what? You could do the bare minimum stuff. But if in fact life was life in you, like it was life in me, then we have to accept that we have to do more. And Kanisha, I'm sure you done did more your whole life just to get to this point. And I know we tired of fighting. We tired of going up the uphill battle. But don't you want the rewards? Don't you want to reap the benefits of all the sacrifices that you've already put forward just to get here? Don't you want to be able to say, I had a dream of becoming a lawyer and I did it? I know you do. Otherwise, you wouldn't be listening to this right now. Otherwise, you would have given up right now. Because one of the things I tell people, and I want you guys to attest to this if I'm not capping or not. If you want to be a lawyer in this era, we built different. We are making a willful choice of saying that I know that it's hard. I know there's a chance that I will fail. I know that it's not going to be easy. I know there's going to be days where I cry. Yo, crocodile tears here, yo. I'm man enough to tell you. I know that there will be days where I want to give up. But everyone right now has made the choice to continue to fight. Think about what you're fighting for. Anytime you find yourself get discouraged, think about that last thing that you thought that was impossible, that you done already forgot about. Understand that this journey really is about you v. you. What are you willing to do to make this dream come true? What sacrifices are you willing to make? Are you willing to sacrifice sleep? Are you willing to be able to remove toxic people, relationships, and distractions in order to make this dream come true? Because I'll tell you this, at first I was one who was unwilling. And that's why I got dismissed from school. I was more concerned about the nightlife. I was more concerned about making sure I was going to the gym, getting that six-pack, benching that 315. And my priorities were all messed up. And I will never forget, I saw one of my former classmates in the airport when I was visiting schools to speak at. And started to look different. Why? Because when we first started law school, we was going to the gym together in the summertime. And then I kept going to the gym, y'all. Getting my workout in, not even really thinking that working out is going to impact my ability to study. Sis may have put on what I call that law school 40, but guess what? She didn't get dismissed from school. And guess what? When I saw her in the airport and we had our conversation, that law school 40 wasn't there no more. Because she placed the emphasis and a priority on what is important. Understand this, fam. This journey to becoming an attorney is not really about intelligence, IQ. It's about your willingness to be able to prioritize law school and prioritizing your lawyer dreams. And being able to eliminate distractions and also be humble enough to be able to ask for help. Humble enough to be able to hear what you have to do to be the best version of yourself. I can honestly tell you that this quest for learning about yourself and how to be the best version of yourself will be the key to your success in order to get into law school. Because that is the only way I can explain to you how a guy who got dismissed with a 0.6 GPA had no responsibilities besides school. It's the only way I can explain how that same guy was married with 3 kids, traveling 200 miles a day, graduated from law school with like a 3.5 GPA. More responsibilities, less distractions. But I knew myself at that particular point. And I knew what I had to do to be successful. And I knew that that excuses were not going to feed them. The only thing that was going to feed and provide for them was through hard work and sacrifice. And I know going to that space is hella uncomfortable. Because in that space is when you are at your lowest. But also it's in that space where you learn so much about yourself. So I urge you and I encourage you on your lawyer journey, reach out and ask for help. Don't just use Instagram to find out what's going on with Blueface, Christian, T.I., 50 Cent. Utilize it as a space to reach out to lawyers who look like you. Reach out to law schools. Reach out to organizations and scholarships and volunteer opportunities that could change your life. We've been very fortunate to have so many amazing guests who have overcome so many challenges to become the lawyers that they are today. And they want to utilize this space to be able to show you how to become those lawyers too. Because every time I go in the courtroom, and I'm going to be in court tomorrow, I start counting. 1, 2, 3, 4. Dang. I ain't never got over 4. We start counting because we want you in these spaces. Understand right now the representation of lawyers in this field. We so need you. And I know that the challenges that's before you, the LSAT, no DEI programs, no affirmative action, the caps on loans, oftentimes makes that dream seem insurmountable. But I'll tell you this, yes, it's hard, but it's definitely a lot easier when you reach out and ask for help. We want you guys to realize that on this journey to becoming an attorney, you are not alone. We also want you to realize that you are good enough. You are smart enough. Your LSAT score does not show who you are. It does not determine your value or your worth. You have an opportunity in how you write, how you present yourself, how you network, and the schools that you connect and vibe with to be able to show them who you are. Your boos, your besties, your fam, your cousin and kin folks have no doubt about your abilities to be successful. Your challenge, you guys, is to be able to have these law schools, to have these law firms, to have that same clarity about your potential too. I believe you can do it. You've done it before. Now it's time to evolve and do it again. I want to thank you guys for joining us for this impromptu episode of Making the Case. Solo Dolo with Anthony, founder of BecomingJD. Feel free to reach out to us on BecomingJD if you need help. The journey is not over. You can be an attorney. I believe you're not going to quit. And we have people out here ready, willing, and looking for the opportunity to help you. So reach out. Hold your head up. You got this. You were the same brilliant, aspiring lawyer you were before you ever took an LSAT. So show law schools who you are. And if you need help showing them who you are, holla at your boy. We'll see you guys at the same time next Wednesday, 8 p.m. Central Time, on Instagram Live. Peace and blessing. And remember to keep fighting for your lawyer dreams. Peace and blessings.